Meet you all. So it's been great to kind of, it's on the graveyard shift I think a little bit, but it's been really great to get loads of information around the different things that I've heard today, particularly around kind of the net zero, where we're going, big thinking around how we can be better, and then also a bit more about the component base around sort of the solar panels and looking at sort of heat pumps. So it's quite nice and rounded today because now I'm going to go around the delivery. So as a Wilma Dixon Collida, so Collida is a spin-off of Wilma Dixon as the main company, as a main contractor. Collida is a startup within that, and we're looking at the best of doing the next generation of construction in a modernised way. I'll go into a bit more detail in a minute about that. But it's interesting because for me, I'm going to talk about how all these things we talked about earlier come together and on delivery aspects, and the logistics around that and the challenges that we're facing around how do you practically do it, deliver it and give it to your client where they're confident around maintaining this new asset and then delivering it and making sure the end customer is happy. So a lot there, and there's a lot to go through, but what I want to do is go through some of the kind of learning that we've gone through, going through a bit of an R&D with Wilma Dixon and getting the best out of our supply chain. And they are our partners, you know, they're not just delivering for us. Like I was talking to a gentleman earlier about, feel like they're our children in a classroom, we're trying to get them all together and kind of on the same hymn sheet, and it takes time, to nurture relationship, but also the trust aspect around, we're not here to screw you over on price, we want to get the best and best quality so that our end customer will come back for more. I'll put this as Collida is, the strapline for us is delivering net zero with integrity. Now everyone's trying to do a net zero product or a solution, but for us it's all about integrity. And there's so many ways you can do that, and I'll touch on how we're doing it. There's no one size fits all, but I think one of the things that we've realised that as Collida, we kind of want to be a bit of science and sort of scientist around why we do what we do and back it around data, and making sure that we have justified reason why we go down certain routes. And not just us to take it, we're taking a third party to kind of validate it as well. So this is our promise. I just touched on it a minute ago. So what's the aim of Collida? The aim is to improve the experience of delivering well-designed, high sustainable, affordable buildings for simpler, smarter and more predictable. Eureka, that's all, I know everyone wants to do that. But actually there's a couple of things that kind of apply into that. So it's through its integrated solution. You know, main contractor, we are kind of making sure everyone is doing the same thing and going in the same direction. And we feel it's a kind of a kit of parts approach. I mean, take the Lego analogy, and I love a Lego. You've got your kind of incremental Lego parts, and you can build various things of it. And I think some gentlemen was talking about earlier about a system. Well, we've taken it on its head and talked about, okay, well, what do we look at incremental components in our house or our building, and build from there, as opposed to design something for a client and then cost it later. And then have that commonality, so then be able to kind of fix and flex depending on what the client needs. And then genuine partner supply chain, and I'll talk a bit more later about this, but a genuine connection. You know, they can pick up the phone and say, look, we've got a problem in our offsite manufacturing line, can you come down and have a look for us? It takes time, and we've been working very closely the past 2 years to get that, but it's almost flagging that early enough so when it comes to site, we do exactly what we say, and it takes X amount of days or weeks to deliver that particular component to then assembly line in it. And a digitalised solution, I mean, tech is everywhere, and we've got lots of things that we can grapple into, but it's making sure it's validated for what we actually need to do. And for us, it's around having a sort of a platform's been kind of said everywhere, but for us, a platform is around assembling everything on a kind of production line, and making sure that we take that analogy of manufacturing like a car into the construction industry. And I think what's different about Collida at the moment is we've brought in 20 people from a mixture of architects, lead assembly lines, the manufacturing line. We've got a construction person. We have myself, who's gone from civil engineering back into delivery and growing the market. And actually having us sit around a round table and discuss some of the fundamental problems that we have through the whole life of the project, not just design, not just procurement, and not just delivery, and coming up with a very systematic and seamless solution to be able to then pinpoint those problems on the way. And then optimise on-site assembly. Now, I'd love it. I'd love to go into the factory and build a house and pop it out and put it onto the site. We fortunately can't do that today, but what we can do is take some of those principles around making sure we have the net zero thread through this, but the on-site assembly is as good as it would be off-site assembly. So we touch on the ecosystem that Collida kind of operates in. So it doesn't sit in isolation. We have various sectors that we have to go through. We take the design to start off. So we know we've got a kit of parts, and that you can't do that in isolation. We have to go into particular sectors. And now the sectors that Collida are working in is the living and learning. I'll go on to the two separate ones in a minute. But ultimately for Collida, there's two North Stars. It's the net zero with integrity, and then enabling it through MMC. Now I don't think you can really separate the two, because actually some of the MMC stuff that you do naturally ends up becoming more naturally net zero. Yeah, so it feels like you kind of, in my opinion, they are almost the same, but actually a balanced view. You know, the 70% is there as a target, but actually if the client is saying, well, actually that doesn't enable us to get the net zero, which is our North Star, then there's a reason to flex that and work out what's the best solution. So going back to this, we've got the design here. So we've got the sectors. So we've got, for us, it's living and learning, and then the building makeup. So what we're trying to do is have a national and local approach to it. So we have national supply chain, which are close to us, fewer of them, but we have a long-term relationship. We appreciate the pound is local too, and have a local level assembly and labour as well. So we know there's kind of has to be a balance between the two, but particularly around design and also in the construction. And then it goes down to procurement. Again, talked about the supply chain, having a good supply chain nationally in the network. And then going down to sales and solutions. The sale for us, and I've been talking to quite a few customers, and customers for us are our local authorities, for a social house, or education for governments. And it's interesting how we kind of go, oh, it has to be really, really cheap. Well, go cheap, but you get the quality. And I think there's a part of it is a balance between being affordable, but having the quality to match, that doesn't undermine the performance when the end user gets it. Because actually, at the end, when the maintenance cost is bigger, then actually you're not really looking at the whole life cost. So what Collida are doing are actually looking at the whole life cost of things as well, and looking at the value proposition around, okay, so you put the upfront cost today and the capital cost. Well, what's the overall long run of that in the 5-10 year program, and what will you get back in return if you're keeping the asset? And that's part of what Collida are doing, and putting science behind that, and giving robust decisions around, think about having a high performing product now, house, school, to then look at the overall thing over the time. And I suppose we're in a good position as a main contractor, because we can draw on everyone we have as all our components and all our supply chain, and try and have the same metric. And that's what I'm doing at the moment with most of them. We're going, okay, well, we've got lots of metrics out there. There's no real standard for net zero at the moment, but how can we have a kind of a standard view across the board? So going on to the Collida living product, and a little bit of a reminder here. And I got my first house back in sort of 10 years ago now, but you kind of forget sometimes that why you're doing it, and I always kind of remind myself, well, it's for moments like this, and you kind of go around and do all these great things, and you're trying to have the best solution to deliver really, really quickly. But actually, it's when they get the keys and they're in the house and it performs well, low energy bills, it kind of makes you feel like, okay, I've done a good job here. So that's kind of the start to this. So Collida Living. So what we've done over the past 2 years is done a pre-authored configurable houses, 2, 3, 4 and 5 bed, and medium-sized apartments as well. And we've gone to the standards that we think are right for this moment in time. Again, they will be expanded over a period. But we have gone for integrity, the passive house standard. I know quite a few people talk about passive house. But we feel actually, as a main contractor, wedding ourselves to a standard allows us to go, okay, here's the product, here's the house. Well, third party, come and validate it, come and give you the certificate. And it has been a challenge, and I'll go into a bit more of that later. But it just allows us to kind of wed ourselves to something that is currently can't move. And that's been a challenge for some of our main contractors, our supply chain, because it's a different way of thinking. It's like, well, we cannot move that goalpost. We have to make sure we are airtightness at point X, and that's a mixture of all the other components coming into that house. So we've gone for passive house plus, and then future home standard white label. Now the third one, you know, you could either, we don't kind of want to show away and go for, you know, passive plus. We know the journey to get there, but we've got the performance options to kind of flex between all of them to provide the client the journey that they need to go through. And having this MMC option around having the kind of the flexible, the different types, and I'll go into which ones we've used for building a house. But it's about pre-manufactured value of excess of 70%, which we all know that, you know, this is a target that's been set from government. Okay, so this is a house type, and okay, fine. But for me, it's about standardising the invisible. So what we've tried to do is provide different facades. So you can have a sort of flat roof, pitch roof, different kind of facade for bricklay, etc. To kind of give the illusion, but to give the idea that we can kind of work with planners and work with our local authorities to get what they need on a community level. And so we're not trying to wed ourselves to, you know, here's a conveyor belt, here it is. Trying to give a flex around what things we can flex and what things we can't. And this is again a bit more about the community aspect, and we're trying to bridge between housing and flats. Okay, so just talking about the passive house standard. Now, I'll throw hands up, I'm not an expert, or I just know that we don't have a leaky house now in our prototype. But one of the things that I've realised on the journey is it's hard, it's not easy, and we've had lots of interesting tape analogies on trying to tape up a house like a Tudor home and try and get this air tightness, which is, you know, 0.2, which we've achieved on our prototype. I'll show you in a minute. The point here is that we're trying to fail quick and then quick around everything that we're doing, and understanding, okay, so what is the best tape? What is the best solution to kind of push forward the economies of scale we need to build houses for social housing? And importantly, it's making sure we're ready to a standard that we feel very strongly about. And not every client right now will be ready to do this, but we kind of want to feel we're bringing them on the journey and educate people around, well, what does that mean to you? How do we make it a reality, and how do we look at the third, fourth, other tertiary things that are affecting that? So just a bit here about the roadmap to net zero. We've gone down a bit of passive house. We feel that sort of offsetting it is not an option for Dixon and Collida, but, you know, there are various reasons, various routes you can go. We feel this is the one most integral for Collida. And around also, you know, there is this future standard of 2025, 2030. It's mandated to be net zero ready, and so start now, not wait until that moment of being reactive. Appreciate everyone's on the journey to do that, but it's defining the justification why doing that now, and the whole life cost part of it, which we should be working on. Again, pretending that we've got a passive house and passive house plus. Okay, so when I first started, I was like, well, why passive house? I mean, we could do anything. We could go around sort of buying credits, etc. But when I saw this graph, it made me realise that even my own house, and very old Victorian mid terrace, the performance levels of what we have today of the heat loss are so much greater than what was predicted, and we just accept that. We accept that that is okay to have that, and I do. And I didn't, when I bought my house, I didn't think, oh well, what's the energy loss I'm going to get? Should I buy the house? Should I not? But I genuinely think in the next 5-10 years, our end user will be asking those questions around, well, what is the performance level of my house, and how green is it? My son does it today. He asked me why haven't I got an electric car, you know, and he wants solar panels on the roof, and he's only 4. But it's important that let's not accept that standard. And one of the things that Passive House does is it provides almost getting to that, you know, that predicted to measure, and that's the ethos that we should all kind of take, and Collida are, you know, working hard to make sure that's the reality. But it just gives a kind of flavour of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. Again, MMC. So I've talked a lot about the net zero and why we're doing what we're doing, and we've kind of taken a couple of these categories. I appreciate you can't take all of them. And so what we've done for our house is taken the categories and gone down and broken up our house. So let's just start off with the structure. So we've gone for 2 to 3 millimetre light gauge steel frame. So that in itself was 48 panels and assembled in 2 days. And, you know, just saying that out loud is kind of like, oh, okay, question mark. can you do that? And we've actually done a prototype at the BRE Innovation Park to actually test this out, because again, if we want to do this at scale, we want to make sure that we can do all the kind of fail fast, learn fast analogy. And then we've gone on to doing a raft foundation as well, and then the brick slip envelope as well. So we've done the steel frame, and we've gone for the brick slip envelope where it's got half bricks filled up. And again, that was a really interesting methodology, because we didn't use any scaffold. We just used moves to kind of put it up. And again, it was sequential to see how it was so kind of really much like assembly line. And I've got a couple of pictures to show you in a minute. But great, a great kind of view of what can happen. The thing that I realised though when doing the brick slip is it's still questioned. Well, can I still hang stuff off there in my hanging basket or my kind of garden shed? Like it's still very new, and yet we are working very closely to kind of myth bust a lot of those kind of question marks and try and help this be a bit more norm. We can still do brick if the client wants it, but we wanted to make sure that we can kind of do the maximum amount for our prototype to show what could happen or could be for a client. Sorry. And then we've got down to Happy 5, which is our service module. So we decided that we wanted to listen to our customer. We did a bit of a survey, and we created a home zero unit, which sits just outside of our house, and that has everything in there. So it has the cylinder, it has the MVHR unit, and the reason why we did that is because we found out that a lot of the time for maintenance, it's hard to get into end user homes to maintain a lot of these assets. So we decided to put it on the outside, so that allows the maintenance people to go in and not have to intrude into the customers. Again, very simple kind of design idea, but when kind of listened to customers, like, okay, that helps us a lot when it comes to maintaining it. And modular wiring, we kind of wanted a plug and play feel where anyone sort of doesn't have to have a particular skill set, can come in and do it and have that USB feel around our modular wiring. And then we had a manufactured prefabricated roof. So we had a roof come in a day, came in one lorry, came in 2 parts, and was popped on site. And similar to our apartments, the only difference we've got bathroom pods, and we've got a site at the moment which we're working on, which is doing that in London. Okay, so the prototype homes BRE Innovation Park. So we started this journey about a year ago, and we've actually now almost near completion, which will be in September. So I welcome anyone that's going to have a look. Please feel free to contact me. The idea of the home was to educate all of us and allow us to have that real frank conversation around, well, how on earth do we make this work in reality? And have some data around, well, what's the whole life cost? What is it going to be if I put 5 on my site? And have quick feasibilities around what practically we need to do for a customer, or for anyone that's trying to get into the market. Well, what do we need to do incrementally to get to having a net zero home? So this is an image of our roof that went in a day. As you can see here, we put scaffolding in on this project. The reason why we did that is we did one side that didn't, one side did, because we wanted to do lots of checks as we went through the process. But when we do it for the real, it will not have any scaffolding. We do it so we can get lots of data and lots of video footage. But again, it was a real kind of moment. One thing that we did learn on this was the wind. We couldn't, this particular day we scheduled it, but it did kind of dictate when we did. So again, something to think about when we're assembling this. We've done this where we planned it, so it's 15 weeks to assemble 2 houses. Traditional is 18 to 20, 25, and it's a 5-5-5 kind of system. So five weeks for groundworks, 5 for the structure, and 5 for fit out and internals. I have got a video, a quick kind of snippet of it. So there's no sound. I'll just give you kind of a flavour of. I'll skip that now. Right, and so that's a webcam at the moment of where it is, and I've touched upon this home zero unit which you put in, and again we've got the solar panels there as well. But 2 penguins, I call them 2 penguins because they keep themselves warm, and then triple glazed windows, and it's really great to see and remind myself in personally that it's an R&D project, and we've learnt so much through this journey, and what I'm doing right now is trying to get it to a point where you have one house which is fully fitted out, and has all the kind of showroom kind of feel, but the other one's going to be a standard in looking at all the things that are invisible, if you like. So having things opened up so you can see what the makeup is around all the insulation that was put in. Our roof, again, got lots of insulation to the Passive House certification. But again, it's about making sure that we can educate and share that knowledge across, and show what we've done and how we can kind of help others on that journey. This is Gascoigne Estate, so we've done an 8-block apartment, which is going to be a Passive House plus. It's again, I think it's part of a wider estate that is built in West London. And again, there'll be bathroom pods in, and we're kind of at going on to site in about a couple of months' time. So it's gone through all its roof stages. Innovation. So again, just a summary on the living then. So going back to sort of low carbon MMC solution, I really it's a case of just sharing what we've done so far, and how it's kind of helped us inform how we want our customers to feel a bit more confident around a Passive House solution, and feel that it's not niche. We can make it at scale, and we've got the supply chain to fully back us, and we're working with them to get the standards right. So then we come on to learning. So learning for us, we concentrated on the DFE procurement route and the DFE Spec 21. So we came up with the kind of kit of parts approach for learning around making sure we have a standard secondary school offer that does everything that it needs to do for the Spec 21. And again, we've worked, because Collida's got a lead architect, he essentially have worked on all these sort of components around the classrooms, and so that they are very much configurable when we go for tendering for a project. And again, we've done it in a visual as well, and I will send a link to our visualizer where we've actually visualized everything in 3D. But it's not just about the visualization, it's about the backing of the supply chain. One of the things we've done is inherently made sure that we have all our supply chain backed up behind it, and it's been hard slog, it's not easy, and but we are working very closely with key partners to get that right. So the kit of parts approach for secondary schools, and it's again net zero building is just exactly what it is. There's no negotiating on it, and it's part of the new DFE construction framework, which we're on at the moment, which is a higher value band. So just a couple of CGIs on our school and the some versions that we're on. Again, this is probably a little bit more bespoke than you would get, but then you've got this area here, which is a standard block, and so what we've tried to do is have a flex solution around having standard blocks, but also you've got the flexibility of having additional stuff to it. But it's able to cost it right, and be able to have the confidence around this is what it's going to cost at the end of it, and not have that or the old kind of manufacturers, the main contracting, oh, it's going to cost you X later. It really is trying to flip it on its head and look more like an assembly line around assembling the Lego blocks and measuring all of those at a micro scale to then build up. And it's not been easy, because a lot of people tender around the material and labour, and we've actually gone and, well, actually we probably just want the labour aspects, and that again has been a challenge around, well, people don't normally just give the labour out and don't want they want the kit so they know where the kit's from. So it's been an interesting journey, but we're working very closely with Swatching to get there. Again, just a couple of images of some of the standard classrooms. Visualise there as well. So I'm just going to finish off, and I don't know, I've probably raced ahead of a bit more time. I kind of wanted to give you the delivery aspect of it, and there's probably a lot of technical stuff I can probably answer a little bit, but I've got my team that do a lot of that. But I just wanted to sort of give a an overview of the delivery and the tangible parts that what makes that product and house or living product, and the kind of MMC element that goes through that, and then the net zero thinking. And what we at Collida are trying to do is yeah, okay, great, have one of our schools or have one of our houses, but it's about the education piece and actually having someone time to go, have a look, interrogate, question, come back with feedback, and realise that, you know, it's part of things we were talking about quality user choice. Well, we don't want quality user choice, we want it to be the standard it is, and we set a passive house, but sharing that knowledge. So yeah, so for us it's, you know, fail fast, learn quick, and hopefully we'll get there together for net zero with integrity. Thank you. Quite early, so
do we have any questions at all? We're here.
How involved are you in sort of upskilling of the workforce? So around things like the airtightness.
yeah.
I mean, I know from experience just how hard it is to do on a one-off project.
Yeah. So we've got a lean manufacturer, head of manufacture, who's actually been working very closely with all the manufacturers, going to their sites ultimately, and actually working with them around, well, what do we do to kind of get it right at the forefront of the site. And I think that's been key, because what we found, particularly with the roof, the first time they were doing it, it was almost a nervousness, because they were putting the PVs on before coming on site and they had everything. But we had a Collida person very much close to that and working through the quality checks. And again, there's quite a lot of quality things that still weren't right. So we've gone back and said, okay, so for our next iteration, this is what we need to do. And for the air tightness is an interesting example. Like, we got 0.2 yeah, which is great. And we're like, okay, so how do you scale that now? Great on a prototype, but how do you scale that fundamentally? And so we've got work streams now looking at, well, how do we do that on 5, 10, 15? And I think for growing this product, we feel that catalyst projects are the first way to go, and then scaling slowly, as opposed to taking 20, 30, well, 200, 300. So, yeah.
Hiya, yeah. I was just interested in thinking about body carbon again.
Yeah.
And looking at the kind of school designs. In terms of the choice of the superstructure, are you going with steel or timber? And
yes.
How did you make that decision?
Yeah, it's interesting, because we went down to the steel route to be non-combustible, and if it would have been easy on timber, of course, especially with the passive house standards, but because of the risk involved in that, particularly for a main contractor with the insurances and everything else that is at the moment, they felt that it's a better offer to go down the steel route for now. Now, I know in the future perhaps that might change, but for a blanket rule for us, it is steel. There's
so the insurances of the actual construction rather than.
Yes, it is. Yeah, for me, yes, and that, I think that will change over time, you know, particularly with brownfield. But I don't think it's just that, but it's the risk part at the moment. I feel that there is a nervousness around it still. You know, we're still going through the whole doing the cladding for a lot of the projects and things, and I think that it's timber's, I think, still there. And I actually, for an advocate of timber, I think it's a great idea, but it's got to come at a phase point for Collida and Dixon. But it's a non-combustible, and I think that with the steel, you've got the robustness to put the brick slip onto it as well. So that's kind of a good. The robustness is there, which we think is key. Hiya.
Thanks for your presentation. Your housing option shows think trusses, cold roof. Given the cost of land and space is at a premium in the UK, do you offer an option with attic trusses and a warm roof option?
Not at the moment, no. So I think that one of the things that I know that we're trying to be passive house standards. So if that, and I'm not technical, so I might take this offline as well. It's making sure that we have the right, I suppose, truss and roof to meet the passive house standards. Answer your question. But if there's it might not be, but I'll take that offline with you on the head of design and answer that a bit more for you. Hiya.
I'm a services engineer, so
Yeah.
and I work for local authorities and the
Yeah.
customer. So if you're delivering this from a group, where's the local support for the local housing authority or local support at local school when something goes wrong? As in, because I've dealt with this where
Yeah.
waiting for somebody to travel halfway across the
Yeah.
country
Yeah,
to fix an issue, and something there on the services is going to go wrong. at some
yeah,
point.
sure.
How does your supply chain deal with that?
So we're working, so as part of the focus groups is looking at the delivery aspect, but then the maintenance side as well, because we do really appreciate that this new kit or the new stuff is again, needs to be maintained. And I think I suppose it's not they're not going to provide an office right next to that store, I appreciate that. But what we're trying to do is have that kind of added value, having the local kind of this supply chain close to us, to look at a way of when we hand it over, there's a maintenance manual, but also a process you can go through methodically to do those checks before someone comes out. But it's difficult because you could say we'll just go all kind of local supply chain and have it at high level, not having any local. So just go kind of like, here's the 5, that's it, everywhere around the country. What we're trying to do is have a bit of a north-south. So where we are in the country, depending on who we've used, we kind of use that as a base. So the criteria is there where some supply chains have offices or a geography in that area. So it's not just somewhere in, say, London that's doing it in Midlands. So we've looked at the geography to make sure that there's a balance there. Hiya.
Hi. Question about BIM.
Yeah.
I just wonder how important BIM is in the process, and is it just in the design part, or does it go through to construction?
If I'm honest, we've started off at the design part, and we're looking at absolutely doing it all the way through to delivery. Because for me, the BIM side is well, what at the end of it you're going to get sort of a BIM model, but how is that using BIM for that end customer, and making sure there's a thread all the way through. We are definitely looking at the BIM at a delivery side, and yeah, we're working on how it works into delivery and the end user side of things as well. But it's certainly something that is inherent into what we do. Yeah. Hiya.
Hi. Do you know any more detail on the wall build-up in terms of sizes and materials for insulation and airtightness?
I have got it. I haven't got it on me, but I can certainly offline give you that detail because I certainly know there's a lot of insulation in there when I was there, and then obviously the build-up internally and externally. But yeah, certainly I can do more of that.
Any other questions at all? Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.